Dear guests, please welcome the Chair of the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region, Nora Hovsepian, to deliver the organizational message.
Distinguished guests, Reverend clergy, dear friends. On behalf of the Armenian National Committee of America Western Region Board, I want to thank you for joining us and supporting this event, the first event that we've had in 2 years. It's so gratifying to see you all here in this beautiful setting. 2020 was a very tough year for all of us, from the COVID pandemic to the devastating war in Artsakh. And 2021 has brought new challenges which we never would have imagined having to face, as the consequences of the war have led to an existential threat not only against Artsakh, but even against Armenia itself. In the midst of this crisis, one thing has become crystal clear. The very same pan-Turkic ideology which was the driving force for the Armenian genocide over a century ago, continues today with the genocidal intent of Turkey and Azerbaijan on full display for all the world to see. And there can be no doubt that they will continue until they either achieve their goal or they are stopped. What remains is the question of how we are going to fight against this onslaught so that our Armenian nation, with its rich and storied history, can survive and thrive. On the heels of a victory we fought decades to achieve, with both houses of Congress formally recognizing the Armenian genocide, the dark days of the COVID pandemic set upon us, before we even had a chance to celebrate. At that time, we had no idea what was coming just 6 months later. As you've undoubtedly seen in the media and in the video we just showed, our projects continued despite the pandemic. And while we would normally take this opportunity to report on our activities, I want to avoid redundancy and focus on the crisis currently facing us. First, though, allow me to express thanks to each of you. Although we had to cancel our much anticipated annual gala banquet 2 years in a row due to COVID restrictions, we decided to have this event in a new outdoor setting, unsure of how it would go. But we were pleasantly surprised to see how quickly it sold out. And we were even more gratified by the fact that this smaller event, believe it or not, has raised nearly the same amount for our organization in donations as our gala banquets typically raise with over 1,000 people present. And that, dear friends, is thanks to each of you and your unwavering commitment to our cause during both good times and hard times. Over the past 2 years, we lost so many strong ANCA supporters and really pillars of our community. Manas Bujikyan, Khajak Sarkisyan, Satik Derohanesyan, Lisa Gabudyan, Khajak Dikidjan, Vasken Madenlian, and of course, former State Assembly member Khacho Achadjian. We will miss them all, we do miss them all, and we cherish their memories as we try to emulate their lifelong service to the Armenian cause. We are exceedingly grateful to our event sponsors and stalwart supporters, Varant and Huri Melkonyan, who unfortunately were unable to be present today due to a prior family commitment. And also to each of our generous donors, ranging from the Sepetians to the Karapetians, from the Mackenzies to the Manjikians, the Akians, the Deroanesians, Eshkians, Fermanians, Galyans, Urfalians, Petrosians, Saryans, and Sinanians, and every single donor who has shown confidence and trust in our work year after year. I also want to thank Dr. Eric Israelian, who is here with us today and has stood behind us every step of the way, and congratulate him, I would be remiss not to do so, for recently receiving an award from Pope Francis, who honored him, very deservedly, for his philanthropic work in advancing awareness about the Armenian genocide. We're so proud of you. Thank you, Eric. Now, allow me to set the stage for how we got here. Last year, after we had to cancel our gala banquet due to COVID restrictions, our board pulled out all the stops to create a unique visual experience for our supporters to feel as though they were actually present at the banquet while watching from home. On Saturday night, September 26, 2020, as we were all putting our finishing touches on our speeches and awards presentations to be taped in studio the next morning, the devastating news came that Artsakh was under attack by Azerbaijan. Faced with this new crisis, our board and staff immediately canceled the taping and sprung into action. Over the ensuing 44 days, we all witnessed with horror the onslaught that was being inflicted upon our homeland, not only by Azerbaijan, but also by Turkey with its drones and its mercenaries, as we faced a modern-era genocidal campaign against our people. We at the ANCA Western Region moved into red alert, high gear, working 24/7, engaging daily, both publicly as well as behind the scenes, with policymakers and elected officials, coalition partners, national, international, and local media, foreign diplomats, and the general public. We hired PR firms and other professionals to help us navigate these unprecedented turbulent times and quickly open doors to think tanks and people of influence. We launched campaigns to identify American lobbying and defense manufacturing firms hired by the Turkish and Azeri governments, and using our influence, we pressured them to terminate those contracts. We continued to find ways to divest public funds from Turkey, because the thought of our tax dollars going to fund Turkey's attacks against our soldiers and citizens was just too much to bear. We disseminated and highlighted reports from the ground by our distinguished honoree and champion, Dr. Arman Tatoyan, who we are so proud and grateful to have with us here, and whose research and real-time investigations continue to document and reveal unspeakable war crimes and human rights violations against our people. We collaborated with community partners to mobilize our people for a mass protest from the Azeri consulate to the Turkish consulate, where 150,000 of us marched to support our compatriots in the homeland and call attention to the aggression by our enemies. We launched the D2P, Duty to Prevent initiative, to counter the rising wave of anti-Armenian and Armenophobic hate crimes by building anti-hate coalitions with Jewish, Hindu, Asian American, Serbian, Assyrian, and Hellenic and other ethnic and racial groups. And to find further areas of common ground and create opportunities for collaboration and communication, we recently launched AJAC, the Armenian Jewish Advisory Council, as an extension of our successful work with Jewish community organizations on genocide and Holocaust education and ethnic studies. Indeed, these are truly dark days in the 4,000-year history of the Armenian people. But history has shown that the light will shine again so long as we remain vigilant, engaged, and proactive. It is this light, perhaps distant, but still there, that keeps us here fighting for our cause, because we don't have the luxury of just giving up, and because our people need us now more than ever. The current geopolitical reality has Armenia and Artsakh at the mercy of regional actors, each pursuing agendas anchored in their own interest, very few of which coincide with our own. This is a crucial time when homeland and diaspora must collectively harness their respective resources and expertise toward the protection, preservation, and advancement of our national rights. This is the time for all hands on deck, coming together to formulate and implement a pan-national agenda. This is not a time to be divisive, dismissive, or self-destructive. As Armenians in the diaspora, and more specifically as Armenian Americans, it is up to us to identify areas where we have the power and influence to effectuate U.S. policy changes to favor our rights and interests over those of our enemies. On a mass scale, this is what we can do, and this is what we must do. This is what the ANCA strives to do every single day. So how do we accomplish this? Well, we support and elect allies in the public sector who have the ability, understanding, and commitment to promote our pro-Armenian legislative and policy priorities and to hold Turkey and Azerbaijan accountable. By drawing attention to war crimes, human rights violations, illegal detention of our POWs, cultural genocide, border incursions, and violent rhetoric by Azeri and Turkish leaders and military, we increase pressure on them rather than allow them to act with impunity. And as the most important focal point, we have to highlight the same pan-Turkic aspirations that led first to the Armenian genocide a century ago and now continue to threaten our sovereignty and borders with the same genocidal intent. Just as we fought for decades for official recognition by the United States of the Armenian genocide, culminating in President Biden's unequivocal proclamation this year, we will continue to fight for increased U.S. aid to Armenia and Artsakh, increased U.S. engagement with the OSCE Minsk Group peace process, sanctions against Turkey, and an end to waivers of Section 907 so we can stop all U.S. military aid to Azerbaijan. As American citizens, we must exercise our right to demand that our tax dollars stop funding these genocidal autocratic regimes. Yes, these are tall orders. And yes, many in our community lament that we are weak because Armenia seemingly has nothing to offer the United States. But in the face of these challenges, we must continue to focus on 4 undeniable facts. 1, Armenia is the only democracy in the region, and thus it is in the U.S. interest to support it. 2, Armenia is the only country in the region with a vocal and organized diaspora that has significant potential to exert pressure in favor of Armenia and Artsakh. 3, for its own security and survival, Armenia must be given viable options so that it is not monopolized by any single regional power which takes advantage of its intense vulnerability. And 4, and very importantly, while Armenia may appear to be alone and abandoned by its supposed allies, there remains one strong ally whose commitment and loyalty are unwavering, and whose vast potential remains largely untapped. And that ally is the Armenian diaspora. It is precisely for these reasons that we have succeeded in keeping the Armenian cause alive on the U.S. foreign policy agenda. We should all rest assured and take pride in the fact that if it weren't for the civic engagement of the Armenian American community, your continued support, and the work of the ANCA nationwide from Los Angeles to Washington, D.C., and everywhere in between, U.S. policymakers would hear only from the well-funded Turkish and Azeri lobbies, and they would have no reason or understanding to support Armenia and Artsakh. And let me just briefly address the elephant in the room, in case anyone is wondering. No matter who is governing Armenia or Artsakh, no matter who has governed the independent Armenian republics for the past 30 years, our purpose has always been to protect and promote Armenia, Artsakh, and the rights of the Armenian people. We must stay laser focused on this mission because regimes have come and gone and will continue to do so. But our commitment as Armenian Americans and as the ANCA is and must remain unequivocally to the Armenian nation. That is what we've always done, and that is what we must continue to do now. Of course, we all have our own opinions about internal politics in Armenia, and we realize and respect the fact that other political actors have different priorities. But we must focus on the fact that it is outside the ANCA's charter to take political positions on such matters. During these devastating post-war times, when policy decisions in Armenia have sharply divided our people, we must continue to advocate for Armenia as a nation state on the world stage and steer clear of allowing our individual opinions to distract us from this mission. Believe me, this is extremely challenging and difficult, but it is the best and most effective way to reach our goals, and we must continue to do that. We are living through increasingly turbulent and seemingly hopeless times, but we must realize that we are not helpless, and this is no time for despair or complacency. We've all got a lot of work to do, every single one of us. We need to amplify our voices, knock on political doors, and demand support for our cause. We need to engage the media to cover what's happening, spread the word everywhere, respond to ANCA action alerts, seek and create viable alternative solutions to what's happening, pool our resources, educate the public sector so that they're not fooled into believing the false narrative being peddled by our enemies and their paid lobbyists, and do everything within our power to come to Armenia's rescue. We are all traumatized now with the war and its ongoing horrible consequences. Our national pride is understandably wounded, and many of us feel paralyzed. But we must rise from these ashes, just as our grandparents rose from the ashes of genocide. And we must continue our fight until victory is achieved, no matter how long it might take. For it is during the darkest of days that we must focus to see the light. So as we continue to forge our path ahead, we look forward to seeing you all in the trenches, where the work of this mission has always gotten done, and where I assure you it will get done, one step at a time. Thank you.